Welcome back to another Rising video. Today we're looking at my new kingdom 3908 and Imperium before pre-KvK even begins. So we have pre-KvK2. You got our king here, a lovely DS, 248 million power. We're going to get a good look at all of the individual data, all the kingdom data, the matchup, the matchmaking. We're going to look at it all, right? We got the time. Why not do it? So you see here, you got some really notable whales. 248 million power DS. You got Burkanda, who's a name you may know, very big account. You've got Slayer, you've got this guy here, who's apparently a pretty big fighter, from what I hear. Great tier 5 KP, 1 billion KP from just that. You got, of course, Noose. DS has a second account, base tank, Cheeks, and then you may have seen, and Drago's here, and a couple others, right? You may have seen this. We also have Mosey, the crazy Kraken from 65. So that's super exciting. And another thing I want to point out before we move on, a lot of these players are going to get massive troop returns. Absolutely massive troop returns. I think Mosey's getting at least 30 million power. So, that's going to be an insane bump mid-KvK. That's definitely exciting. We are definitely in business in terms of that. Alliance-wise, with only 128 people, you could actually see we're at 5.9 billion power, which is wild. You could also see I've stepped into leadership right here, right? So we are definitely powerful and definitely, ready for a fight. We've got two alliances here that are just right there with the supporting. And then we also have our enemies, right? I do want to talk about the matchup, the matchmaking. So let's take a look at top 300 and top 400. So while we don't know who exactly is our enemy, right, we can kind of infer. I don't know any of the Diplo. We could kind of infer who's going to be the Diplo in terms of main enemies. So this is top 300, the thing Imperium is based off of. And you can see we're just a bit ahead of 98 with 600 million power of a lead. But we are pretty significantly ahead on KP. And even if you removed Mosey, who's a great fighter, removed Noose, who's an awesome fighter, we're still ahead on KP by a relatively good margin. So you could say we're respectfully ahead. The deads are very interesting. I think what this tells you is that we're fighting either people who did KvK2 and are migrating back. I don't think that's the case because of the lower KP, but more likely it's people who did KvK1 and had a really good fight in KvK1 because the deads are really, really respectable and the KP is not, which means to me they probably fought more tier 4. We had more KvK2 migrants, which means we fought more tier 5. That's how I'm reading this data. And the other interesting thing to note, right, is this is the 8th kingdom. So if you remember, 8 kingdoms go into a KvK2. All of them, you have 6.4 to 5.9 down here. All of them are really tight for who's going to be in our KvK. We have actually no idea, right? At least I don't. Who's going to be the last two? It really isn't certain. And even if you look at other measurements like we will of like top 400 and things like that, this is one migration group going out or in from completely swapping these people. I mean, both these groups, if they get, 400 million power, 500 million power, they're in my KvK. So who knows how the bottom's going to be. Clearly 98 is the main enemy right now. We'll see what happens with 10. 10 is also quite strong. 12 I thought was a little stronger than their data shows. But let's look at top 400 and see what changes. Now in the top 400, something you're going to notice is that 98 actually has equal power. And their KP is a lot higher, right? Same with deads, obviously. Why is this? Why did they gain so much power? Because they have two main big alliances. Both their alliances, which we'll look at later, are about 4.4 million power. And then they have a third support alliance as well. So they're a bigger kingdom. It's almost as though they went quantity while we went quality, but clearly they don't quite lack the quality either, right? So it's very exciting to see that. You do see that 10 still is a little bit less, but they are quite respectable. Same with some of these other enemies here. 04 has a good amount of KP. They're comparable. 02 is an okay amount of KP. A lot less deads, which is very interesting. But yeah, you can see some very interesting stats here. And then again, if you look at this time the 7th, 8th, and almost all of them, besides we could say 03, are like the same thing. So again, it's another situation where they gain, even if the lowest gains 500 million, or 600 million, they're in my KvK. So it is very tight knit. I mean, all these people are tied. Even these two are tied. So it's definitely up in there who's going to be at the bottom and in my KvK. And I think it's important to note the differences in kingdoms, that my kingdom really is one massively powerful alliance and the two good supporting alliances. But 98, which we're going to look at now, 98 is not that way. They are more spread out, like 73 was. And we all know how 73 ended. So let's go take a look at 98. So here we are at 98. This is the alliance with the temple. 4.8 billion power. You can see they're fairly respectable. 79 mil with 2 billion KP is not bad at all. They've definitely got some tier 5s, right? My kingdom has 60 tier 5s right now. So it is something we want to consider how many our enemies have. This alliance has more of the tier 5s, I believe, with their king, or not king, but their R5 having 137 million power, which is very high, very respectable. I thought he was higher, to be honest. Yeah, 143. I wonder if he had to zero someone. Regardless, it is still very high, right? And you see these other people that are also high up there, 96 million. Slightly low KP, to be honest, for their powers, but still pretty high power overall. Is this the guy from 70? Oh my god. Am I about to fight the guy from 70? Oh, it is. Wow, I need to share this news. I cannot wait to fight this guy. Holy cow. He is a good fighter, but an absolute really annoying person. Wow, I am very excited to fight him. That is going to be a good time. Okay, well that derailed me. But you can see, right, 4.4 billion, 4.8 billion. And then if we zoom out here, you can see their last alliance over here. And I'll just do a quick scan of the map. It's about 3 billion. A lot smaller players, but still 3 billion power is certainly nothing to laugh at. Even just as fillers, right? And I think we all know that is filling alone can have quite a bit of value. But I do think these are all the same alliances. I'm curious what this shell is in the corner. Usually you don't have something like this in Kingsland. It is 2.4 billion. That's a pretty high power. I mean, some of these players are definitely on the lower end, but they do seem to have, it's almost like a free-to-play alliance. They do seem to have 3 alliances and then a 4th sub-alliance over here, shockingly in Kingsland. So that's interesting. I do wonder what this is, because when they have to build flags or it disconnects, but I guess that's their prerogative. But yeah, so overall, this is definitely a KvK where, depending on the Diplo, it could be a pretty damn good fighting KvK for me. I get to fight the 70 King again, so I'm happy. It's going to be very interesting, so definitely stay tuned. I will do a quick disclaimer that I have to do. I am adding a tip jar to my streams and the description. Feel free to take a look at that. Unfortunately, I can't get monetized for quite a while. So if you are willing to support me and all the work that I do for the channel, the kingdoms that I'm in, I would definitely appreciate it. But don't feel obligated to. It's just support or a thank you for helping or whatever you want to do. Thank you for the selfish disclaimer, and I hope you don't mind. Bye-bye.